I'm back, baby. After, gosh, a brief intermission that I was not really planning for. I do apologize, everyone. It has been one chaotic month, a little longer, honestly. I think now at this point, but I've just had a lot going on, and with family stuff and home stuff, and I finally got it all sorted out. So we are gonna be back on the grind like nothing ever happened. And let's get to it because I did a little bit of stuff in between, but not a heck of a lot, honestly. It was just kind of expanding what we've already done and catching up to what, we should be doing. Like I've been telling you guys from the start, definitely build more than I've been doing. I've just been showing you guys one of everything just to, show you how to craft it and what basically you're going to need to look at to progress. Because it is a lot to figure out in this pack, and it is kind of overwhelming still, even for me. I mean, I was looking into Thaumcraft just for water, and that is quite the nightmare. So our next episode is going to be on Thaumcraft because it's very confusing to start, and I will show you guys step by step how to do it. I already went through the frustration of doing it. It was actually streamed on Twitch last night, or the night before, I guess, by the time you guys see this, but it was a couple days ago, I guess. So I did stream that, and you could check that out. It was, gosh, it was a nightmare. I was getting really frustrated trying to figure it out because there's not much explanation on it, really. It doesn't really tell you what to do. So I will show you guys exactly what you're going to have to do to actually do the research through Thaumcraft because it's kind of confusing. And we'll also link some tips and little helpful tools that you can use to kind of simplify that process a bit yourself. But otherwise, let's get to it. I got a lot to show you guys, and I'm pretty excited about it. So let's start with that. But let's start with the Nether Room because I just did this because every time I come in here, it's a mob farm. I don't know if you guys are having the same problem I've been having, but I had it all as spawn-proof blocks even, and it was an issue. So I ended up making this fancy glass that we had in the LV age. So if you, well, actually, it was the Steam age that it shows it. So those little blue, they're not actually slimes that fly out of mobs when you kill the mob. It's something else. But they drop the ectoplasm, and when you kill them, then, they fly around. They're kind of a pain to kill, but if you get enough, you don't need much. One ectoplasm makes 16 glass. So it takes 8 glass and it'll double it for you. So it's actually a pretty cheap recipe, which is kind of cool. So I ended up crafting just a little bit, and I dug this out until it just dropped. I almost died in the process. Thankfully, I had a hang glider on me. But I just basically dug it out and just filled it with spectre glass. So now they'll spawn, because they actually spawn on these 2 blocks. That's the problem. The portal is what spawns them. So now, occasionally, when I come through, there's a single mob just stuck in here, but he follows me and just falls down to his death. So it's not really an issue anymore, which is actually kind of nice. Actually, just had a creeper come in here when I just came through here, and he was just chilling here, and when they're in a portal, they're kind of delayed for some reason. So you actually have enough time to run past a creeper and get out of the way. He'll chase you and just fall. And that's exactly what happened. So I would definitely suggest doing this. I've been recommended to, glass it off and put diamond spikes in to where it just kills them, but I don't know if diamond spikes hurt you or not, and I didn't want to find that out the hard way, so I just figured, why not just dig it out? Let them fall. I mean, what's the problem there? So that's a simple solution, and it absolutely has been working for me, which is cool. And then I will show you a couple other things I got to show you guys. I did make my healing axe actually just a couple nights ago, because when I was just getting started playing again, I was so frustrated with the Spice of Life. I'm not a fan of that mod at all, and it drives me nuts. So I ended up sucking it up and doing all this. I actually recorded it. I was trying to show you guys, but I had something messed up in OBS. OBS, I guess, updated over the month, and it definitely messed something up, and I did not realize it after, in the process of recording all that. I recorded all this, set it all up, got all this done and everything, and there's no audio to any of it. So it kind of sucks. I might be able to fix it and just audio over it, but even a lot of the videos kind of whack and just really glitchy, but I did fix it now. So this one should be back to the way it was. I hate every time OBS updates, it likes to change things for some weird reason. But I ended up making the kitchen to make the healing axe, and all these are actually really cheap to make. It's just stone and wood. So if you look at the kitchen blocks, I'll show you still. The only hard parts are like the appliances. Otherwise, the counters, they're just a chest, some wood planks, and some stone planks. And the stone planks you get by compressing stone dust. The wood planks you get from compressing your wood pulp. And then, yeah, a chest. So that's easy. The oven's just iron furnace with even more iron wrapped around it. And that's your oven. So that's easy. We've made those. The cooking table was probably the weirdest one because it's just 2 iron screws. We've done that. Wood planks, we know that. Stone plates, we know that. And it's just the cooking for blockhead book. I lost mine, so I had to actually remake it. So if you have to remake it, you just need a basic book, and then you cook it, and then you cook it again to get it to the second tier. Actually, no, you craft it with 2 steel plates and 2 crafting tables. That's what it was. And then that will let you build this. And this is actually your best friend for making these meals, because if you load these cabinets up, these all interlock, and it can see the inventory in all of these, even the fridge. So you could fill all these with food, which is basically what I did. I've just been feeding the garden. I've been bringing it up into here, and slowly I actually bone mealed a lot of what we needed because I was impatient. And the flowers were the hardest part. That's what I spent most of the day doing. Literally, the food was easy. The meals were honestly really easy because you can see they're not that difficult to craft, honestly. Like your sausage and bread, that's one of them you have to make. It's just maple sausage, ketchup, bread, and onions. And the ketchup you just make in here with a mallet and tomatoes, and you make ketchup. So then you just do that. Like, I would suggest doing, this is what I would recommend doing. Because like, if you open this, let's check this out. So if you look at the recipe for this, for your pizza, or your supreme pizza. So if you look at your bookmarks, go to your empty page and use your NEI thing for this, because it'll actually just tell you what you need, so you can kind of focus on those main ingredients and build yourself a nice list for each of these. So if you Control Shift A, it'll add all that to it. And then same for that pizza, like you want to see the pizza recipe, so you Control Shift A that. Oh wait, whoops, messed that one up. Control Shift A, there we go. And now you could link them. And let's say we want, because you need 10 of these. So Control Shift and scroll to change it. And then if you right click this, it'll update that. And boom, now you know that you need 20 regular pizzas, which you don't need bakeware. So you could kind of ignore the tools because that's part of the kitchen set. So once you make all these, they won't be an issue. They don't break. They're permanent and they're really nice. The only one I can't make is the bakeware. So there's other recipes that you can use without using the bakeware. Let me pull it up. The rolling pin. So the rolling pin is what you're gonna have to use for now for some of them, and the soft mallet is the other option for some of them. So you can make tool racks, which is what I did, and it will use them and pull them off and break them down as you're using them, which it's actually kind of glitching out right now. There's tools on these and you just can't see them. There's like 2 rolling pins here. There was more mallets over here, and like normally you see the pans and pots on top, but it's not showing right now. My game's been kind of buggy today. But yeah, I just crafted all of them that way. And if you do that, like I said, go down the list for the hungry axe. Well, the hunger axe, and it's actually not as bad as it looks. Like it seems bad, but it's really not that bad. Where was it? Fishing, farming, and cooking, right here. So the gardens, you should have your gardens by now if you've been exploring, which we did. We got those forever ago. The tofu is kind of weird. I made mine in the centrifuge. It's actually a lot easier. So if you go to a centrifuge, fill it full of water, pump water into it, and just throw your tofu into it, it'll make silken tofu. And then, well, yeah, it'll make wet tofu. Throw it in again, it'll make silken tofu. And then if you want firm, you could actually just hammer it or rolling pin it, and it will actually turn it into firm. So it's kind of neat. And some of them take silken, some take firm. So you actually have to make a bit of both. But just mark all these off. Just do that's all of them. You could actually do them in your quest book. So you could basically hit this, pull it up, Control Shift A. And then you don't really need to link that one, but You could say like, you know, you want to know how to make your maple sausage, you could link that one to this one and do it the same way we do with the pizza. And it will basically give you your full list of all the ingredients of what you're going to need for everything. And that's basically what I did. And I just went through the list, made all of them. I made extras even of most of them. The only one I didn't get extras of was the rainbow rice curry, because I was absolutely struggling to find these. I found one little biome that had just a handful of them, and it was literally just enough to make the 20 and enough to eat one right away and get a heart. Hope, like, you know, I didn't actually get a heart from it, but it was added to my heart points or whatever, so I'll get a heart soon. But that's all I did, and it just, I turned them in. It does consume them, so you do lose all of these, which really sucks. That's where it stings. But basically, once you have it, you kind of don't need to eat that much anymore, because if you're good about holding this while you're just running around, you'll never really run out of hunger. You will still want some though when you're fighting, because it is kind of slow to regenerate on its saturation or whatever it is, and its hunger. So eating is still your quicker option to heal. If you lose all this and you're just like in a pinch, it's just better off to eat something. And if you actually make these meals and make like a whole stack of each, they do give you quite a bit. Like if you look at that, it fills your hunger bar and your saturation ding near. So they pay off, no doubt. I would definitely make a few extras if you can, and they'll last you now at this point if you're good about using your wand. Well, your healing axe. You just got to remember, it only works when it is in your hand. If it's in your hotbar, it doesn't count. So you have to be holding it. So start just holding this thing and interacting with everything with it, and make your life easier, honestly. It'll pay off. And then, let's see, what else do I have to show you guys? None of this really changed yet. This is what I was getting set up to change, because this thing is a power-hungry monster. And it just, my creosote does not keep up with it. So, what I'd like, as you can tell, it's struggling. It is not keeping up. It slowly drains it. I could run it for like half a day, and then it finally empties this thing out and shuts off. So it's not ideal, which is why I've been working on this setup. If you remember, I had oil in here, and we made our first set of heavy oil right here in these. And we made heavy fuel. And I did the same thing to make a little bit of light fuel. And I basically did that to make diesel, because in order to make diesel, which I ended up wanting to do in the long run, because I was realizing when I was using heavy fuel to run this other room I will show you in a minute, I was using heavy fuel to run those generators, and it gives you a good amount. I'm not gonna lie, it does. It's decent. It's 360,000 EU per bucket that you get from heavy fuel. But diesel does jump up to, I think it's 480. Let me check. For the plain diesel cell. You know, we want the uses, not how to make it. You go to its uses. In a combustion generator, yeah, it's 480,000 EU. So it is a little more bang for your buck, no doubt. And light fuel isn't that hard to make. It's actually more efficient to make if you're using regular oil like I was using. And that was working great. It's actually a pretty good ratio for light fuel. Heavy fuel's a ripoff for regular oil. So you actually kind of want two different oils, it seems like, if you want maximum efficiency. But we're going to talk about that down the road, because we have other options to get oil besides drilling. And I think we're going to look into that, so we don't have to keep moving pumps, because I literally moved this thing like 2 or 3 times just to keep refilling this tank and making heavy fuel to run what's up here. So let me show you, actually, before I show you the diesel, let me show you what I've been trying to show you guys for a while. It's not fully done yet. It's still kind of a work in progress, because I was trying to do it with just Gregtech pipes and Gregtech logic, and I've been struggling. Like, it's not pulling these vacuum tubes out, even with an MV conveyor that does it every 5 seconds. This thing just actually crafts them too fast for it. So it's not being able to pull this out before it sees that it could grab that one again. So it starts there again and works its way down. So I have a solution for this, and we're going to talk about that in the next episode or two. I'm not quite ready to finish setting this up yet, but we have a few other things to make for it first. But this is basically the start of a fully automated circuit room. And it's kind of overkill, but it'll pay off, I think, at least for now, because I've already made stacks out of this thing, and it's not that bad, actually. And it's kind of nice because you can just let it run all day while you're doing things, and you could come back and have a decent pile of circuits made. So all I did was it was 28 machines, and it's actually being powered right now. It's not plugged in because I was working on power setup, so I've still been hand feeding everything up here, but it's powered by an MV generator, and all these are LV machines, if you noticed. So the way around that is because I wanted this because it would actually produce a lot more power. Like these pump out 128 EU instead of the 32. So I send it through a cable into a high amp transformer. This is an LV high amp transformer. And this will basically take an MV generator and make it usable for LV machines. So as you can see, it goes from 4 amps of MV to 16 amps of LV. And you got to remember that is 16 amps. There is a low amp transformer that does it to a single, but I wanted the high amp because we were charging batteries. So this is actually kind of a neat little trick that I did for this, because this does actually efficiently power all these machines as they run. I did put batteries in some of these ones that take a little more power, like the arc furnace here. This takes 3 generators on its own usually, so I put an extra battery in it and one in these. And like this generator's off right now because these are always running basically. But yeah, it definitely worked for this setup because it saved me from making a ton more generators and having to use just a ton more generators. These are actually pretty cheap to make. It's just like 4x copper. Actually, I think it was a 16x copper cable. Let me check. LV high amp. Yeah, it's 4x copper and 4x tins around a low voltage transformer, which is just a machine hole wrapped in cables. And that's the one that I was telling you. This is the one that would output this single amp. Well, it outputs 4 amps, I guess, still. It's weird. It's really weird. But it absolutely works, and it's been working. So it's pretty neat. So I set up our rock breaker that we built a while ago, and it's been making cobble, and the cobble drops down into gravel, that drops down into sand, which then I send the sand into a MV fluid extractor. So I had to make an MV fluid extractor. I gave this one a battery and plugged it in directly too, because it was not actually powering off of that setup because it was pumping out LV stuff. So I needed to kind of connect it directly. So that's kind of why that's there. It still needs blocked off, but it actually works great. So now I could actually melt sand down directly from molten glass, and that goes into here to make our glass tubes and fills that. So we actually always have some on stock. That was the idea of some of this. I wanted to have some of it on stock because you do use some of this for recipes and stuff, so it actually doesn't hurt. So the idea was to have some of it on stock, but it's still a work in progress, and it's definitely, I got some kinks to work out. I did figure out now though, thanks to who was it? It was Nova that told me this. Nova Shep. He's someone I watch on Twitch a lot too. But if you take a screwdriver and if you shift right click on the face of a machine, it will tell it to input filter, and it will actually get a little logic finally and be smart about pulling stuff in. So if you've been trying to like have one chest to have your input and output, and you have stuff going back in when it shouldn't be, that will fix your problem. Just shift right click it with a screwdriver and you'll turn that filter on or off, and that will actually tell the machine not to accept it if it's not a valid item that it could use, which does help in some situations if you're trying to keep stuff really compact, which is going to pay off in this room. I didn't know that, and I've been struggling with that, so that actually can fix some of these problems I've been having over here. Like this one, I did it with this one finally, because I kept having 1 or 2 of these would be crafted faster than the other until I actually got some in stock. So then it just kept pushing it into the other slot. Now it won't do that. It's actually smart enough. But that was the whole circuit room. I mean, it's pretty simple actually. Some of it, they're not all directly fed into each other like this whole little chain is, and then it stops, and then this has pipes and cables connecting it all to this. Same with this. This is your wire mill making the copper, and that's fed from the annealed chest here, from the annealed copper barrel here. And that's for the water, for the electrolyzers. There's a Stirling pump right there. You can see it. And I've never had to refill this thing yet. I barely filled this barrel up. I think I put 16 stacks in, and that's what it's used so far. The Stirling water pump is kind of underrated. It's not the best ratio. It's only 120 liters a second, but it's still actually pretty decent, honestly. And with how little charcoal it uses, it's just, yeah, you can't complain about it. I really enjoy it. And then I have a fluid extractor here for molten red alloy, and that actually gets piped over into here. That's what you saw in here. And then this is your mixers. This makes the molten red alloy, and it sends it to this electric furnace, and then that gets piped right into there. And it also sends some over to here, because we need red alloy wires to make our circuit assembler. Well, in our circuit assembler to make our circuits. Same with molten tin. So I have a fluid extractor below this, pumping it up into there directly. And then all this stuff's made on this side, basically. These, I need to change the recipe for. I've been working on a different recipe for diodes, because I realized you could do the annealed for them. So I just need to fix this. But I have a drawer here for that. And I know the solution for this. I think we're gonna use logistics pipes for it. Actually, conduit might be a better idea. It might be faster. But I will show you logistics pipes in a bit, because that's kind of a complicated mess to get into on its own. But basically over here I am missing a machine still. I did realize this. It doesn't go straight from wood pulp to planks anywhere. Like, there's nothing to do that. I need to add a compressor for that. Otherwise, yeah, it just needs to go into a compressor, and then it'll make planks and then send the planks over here. This is taking plain copper for copper foil, because you can't use annealed to make these circuit boards, unfortunately. I wish you could. But otherwise, yeah, that gets piped over all the way over into here, goes into the circuit assembler, and then over here is going to be the MV one. I was kind of running out of room, so that might actually get expanded up into here, because we do have to make different diodes for that. And we have steel casings and stuff, so I might expand that over a bit, or maybe stack it taller and have it just pipe down into it or something. I'm not sure yet, but this will be the MV one, and it'll pump into here. And then I'll have both of these, which would be really, really nice. Just constantly on demand. I can just keep coming up here, filling these back up. Eventually, I'm going to pipe it all together. I'm going to connect the copper up to everything. I'm going to connect fuel to it so it can always be running. That's why there's holes right there, so I know where they're at. Otherwise, you can't even tell that there's pipes in the floor. That whole floor is basically facade. It's crazy. You look at these. A lot of nickel item pipes under this floor. Crossing back and forth, but it actually worked out for just Gregtech. It is functional, actually, which is kind of neat. I've made quite a few stacks of circuits out of it already, which has paid off, because we've had to make quite a few machines to keep progressing. Because, like, my fuel is a problem, so I've been looking into that. Like I said, we were going to make diesel, so I started the process of making diesel, and I'm going to show you a bit of that now. Because it is complicated. I mean, it's not really complicated. It's just two different distilleries. You need one for light fuel, one for heavy fuel. So that's basically what's happening right here. It goes around here too. It wraps around back. So I have 8 producing light fuel right now, and I have 6 producing heavy fuel. And as you can tell, the heavy fuel aren't running because it's still not the right ratio. I did my math like completely backwards apparently on these. I had them flip-flopped. So I still need to convert, I think, 2 more to light fuel, and then I think it might be okay, and these will actually kick on more than they do. But you also got to remember, too, the ratio to make diesel's really, really weird. It's 5 light to 1 heavy, so that's kind of why you want way more light than heavy. And that's what I totally forgot about. I was just looking at the pure numbers to produce, like, a bucket and like you don't get a lot of light fuel and heavy fuel out of each. So I was looking at the numbers to produce buckets, but they all go into an advanced mixer. So you need an MV mixer to make it, and then that gets dumped into a tank, and I'll show you that in a second. But this is actually a temporary little setup I made just to pipe more oil in until we get our permanent oil solution figured out. But there is, if you remember, let me see if I still have one. Should still have some laying around. Yeah, oil sands. I've been hitting these. I've been flying around my hang glider looking for these and collecting more oil, because it's actually faster than pumping oil and you get more out of it, I've noticed. And it actually comes out as heavy oil, which is really neat. But oil sands is really weird to break down. You cannot break down the actual ore. You will get some crushed ore and some pile, and some dust when you mine it, but you will get a lot of the regular ores in a block, and you cannot do anything with it. You'll go try to stick it in a macerator, nothing will happen. So you actually have to stick them in a centrifuge, and it will just centrifuge it directly and send oil out, and it will also give you a by chance of sand. So you need to add something to catch your sand, but that's all you have to do, literally. And then once you do the dust, you can clean the dust and send them through too, and they'll actually produce oil too. It's a slower recipe for the dust itself than it is the actual ore. But, I mean, oil's oil, and we're struggling to fill this up because I made steel tanks. These aren't regular iron tanks. I made them out of steel this time, so they're double the value compared to an iron tank, which is actually kind of neat. So they're 7 by 7 by 7 for the oil tank and for the diesel tank. And I've hit 3 of these veins now, I think, and it's filled this tank. Like, it's kept it pretty much halfway this whole time, and this thing's slowly been filling up. So it's actually not that bad to get oil from veins and stuff. And I think it'll last a bit because I'm not really using a heck of a lot yet. But it gets sent up into here, into the heavy oil tank, and this comes out as heavy oil. And the heavy oil ratio is actually better than your oil ratio for heavy oil, but it's actually worse for light fuel, which is where it gets weird. If you want maximum efficiency, you'd want to produce light fuel with plain oil, and you want to produce heavy fuel with heavy oil. So you would want 2 different oil tanks, and that would just complicates things, and I don't really see a reason for that because we have other options for oil, which we're going to discuss still. But up here, in order to make the diesel, in order to get your light fuel and heavy fuel, you have to throw it in the chemical reactor like we did before with hydrogen. So I needed a permanent hydrogen solution, and I'm gonna put I don't know how I'm gonna link it yet because I just made my own little flowchart for it, because all the flowcharts I've seen floating around in here are just on white backgrounds, and I don't like going blind, especially because I play at night a lot. So I made a dark version of it, but other than that, it's the same thing. It's a hydrogen pentoxide loop, and it was really tricky to get set up because it has a lot of byproducts. Well, not really a lot of byproducts, but it's a lossless loop that is basically continuous. It just needs water and and oxygen, but it produces the oxygen and even more. So it's actually a source of oxygen, and it's just a free source of endless hydrogen and oxygen. And all you need to do this is actually really simple. It's just hydrogen. Well, it's what is it? Let me check. Hold on. You take your phosphorus, pentoxide dust. You get this from centrifuging ash. You get 2 per 36 things of ash. So if you have a lot of ash already that you just haven't done anything with, throw it in a centrifuge and you'll get some of this. And this is actually a really neat, pretty cheap little loop to make. And you feed it just 14 of this stuff. So if you look at its uses, if you go into a chemical reactor, you give it 6,000 liters of water. So that's where the water gets a little tricky. And a Stirling pump is actually just fast enough if you're using an MV electrolyzer for all this process. If you're using the LV ones, or a single, well, I mean, if you're using a single MV electrolyzer instead of 4 like I did here, it will be a little slower. It does it every 95 seconds, which is actually more than enough for a Stirling pump at that point. But for the Sterling pump, it literally just produces enough to keep this going, which is kind of crazy. It does 6,000 every 45 seconds, so it's kind of perfect. And if you look at it though, you take your phosphorus pentoxide dust, you stick it through, and it comes out as phosphoric acid. And I have that go into cells for me because we can't do the large chemical reactor recipe. Well, actually, it's not a large one. That goes into a tank and it sells it for us. And then it goes into this chest. And I actually had to start using logistics pipes for this because I could not get this done with just Gregtech. I was struggling to make it work. And I will show you guys logistics pipes in like one of these next episodes. We will break it down and go through it in detail because it's kind of complicated, but if you know how to use it, it's actually kind of overpowered. It is a very beautiful system to set up, but it does take power, and I had to figure that out. It does not take much though. It's literally like a couple LP every operation, and it's not much. One generator will run that perfectly fine. And it just sends everything to its proper destination for us, which is really nice. So if you look at this loop though, so we take our phosphorus pentoxide and well, our phosphoric acid, and if you notice, if you send it to a distillery, you get no, not a distillery, they're electrolyzers. If you send it to an electrolyzer in a cell with 6 empty cells, and this is why I needed the logistics pipes, because these were just spitting out too much, and there was too much logic going into everything for Gregtech pipes. That was before I did figure out about the input on the machines though with the screwdriver. That might have changed things. So this might work for you with that setup just fine. But it sends everything in, and it sends just the proper amount, and then it pulls it out, sends them into these chests, and it gives you your hydrogen and oxygen, and then it sends those up to tanks, which get pumped into these. I added these little LV, well, they're actually MV tanks. I added these because I wanted to be able to add an overflow valve to stop it. To make sure it never stopped if like we used all the hydrogen and the oxygen was still full. Like it would stop because it couldn't dump the oxygen. So I just added void filters to both of these, and the void filters weren't actually that hard to make. If you check this out, wait, I had one in my bag. I could just pull it out and do it that way, I think. Oh dang it, I put it away. Never mind. Oh yeah, they're called overflow valves. That's what they are. So I just made overflow valves, and these are just 2 pumps, 2 motors, and 4 Tumbaga plates in an assembler, and that will give you an overflow valve. And you could actually change the amount. So if you don't want it to stop at 64,000, you can change it. You can lower it. You can't go higher though. That is the max. So don't be too confused by the maximum void amount. I think that's the max it could literally void at once. But it's also the max that you can set it to, but it's not gonna stop whenever it voids 64,000. That's the way it kind of worded, and that's not how it is. It's just, yeah, it's the limit basically. So you can set it to that number or whatever number you please, which is pretty neat. So like if you look here, it's set to 64,000. You could basically change this to any number you want and it'll do it. You could say 1 and watch, it'll overflow it. Boom, all at once. So I think 64,000 is the max it can void at once, but then that is where it cuts off. That is the limit too. So keep that in mind when you're setting those up. But otherwise, yeah, I just pumped the oil in with the long distance pipe from a couple oil spots I was using, and I just got tired of moving that. So I'm just like, well, let's go look at oil sands and try that. And oil sands does give you quite a bit, and it's a pretty quick process. And you get a lot out of those veins too, which is pretty neat. So like I said, I did 3 of them, and it filled this thing more than halfway all 3 times, and that bottom tank's getting pretty full now. But that's basically this little loop. It sends all that back in it. Oh yeah, I forgot to show you what happens with the dust. So the phosphoric acid, you send it to your electrolyzer, and it gives you your phosphorus dust. And if you take this dust and if you send it to a what was it? It was the chemical reactor. If you send it to the chemical reactor with 10,000 oxygen. So if you noticed, this, when you do this, it gives you 4 oxygen and 3 hydrogen. So that 14 that you do gives you 4 cells worth of phosphoric acid, which is enough to do 4 electrolyzers, which will give you a total of 16,000 oxygen. So you're still making 6,000 oxygen per operation between all the machines, and you're making a lot of hydrogen, like 12,000 or something. More than enough hydrogen for our needs, honestly. And then you take your dust and then you go send it right back into a chemical reactor with that oxygen, and you get your full 14 back. So it's a completely lossless loop, and it's actually been working flawlessly this whole time. So it's pretty neat. But they do have to be MV electrolyzers, so remember that. So you need MV generators, MV electrolyzers, a lot of MV stuff to start finally getting decent operations and stuff, but it is what it is. But if we go down, I'll have to go up the other ladder to show you guys. Sorry, it gets a little louder on these distilleries. But this is a mess that I am not proud of, but I'm kind of proud of because it's purely Gregtech and it works. And it's in a pretty compact area for 20... So how many machines is this? Let's see, I got... a lot. Yeah, it's just a lot. So there's 6 on that side plus the... so that's 12. 1, 2, 3, 5 and 5. So that's 10, 20 right there. And then 4 more, 24. Plus the 6. Well, yeah, plus the 12. Oh, gosh. So that's 36 something. And then a mixer. And then a generator for that. So 20 or 38 machines total. And it's still not fully operational. Like I said, if I get... if I fix these, I could get them all running properly. And it'll be better. But it's filling this up pretty quickly, honestly. I'm enjoying it. It's working. But that's the whole diesel setup. It's a bit of a mess, and I actually had a little fun with it decorating the outside. I made these little steel catwalks mod, these support columns. And you can actually climb up them, which is kind of neat. And go down them. But I just added them for like little supports, and I think it'll look nice once these go into the ground and everything. I think it'll look solid. So I gotta start piping everything around the base now and piping my fuel around. But this is gonna be our permanent... Oh god. Whoops. This is gonna be our permanent fuel setup for quite some time now. So I'm looking forward to it. It'll be quite fun. And we do have options for oil. So let's talk about that now, actually. Besides oil sands, there's oil combs. And I was looking into these, and I think these would be a fun option for us. And oddly enough, this is something I've noticed just looking at some of the bees. Don't always just assume the one named after the item you're looking for is your best option, because if you look, it's clearly not. It gives you just an old comb and an oily comb, and an old comb just gives you beeswax and honey. But an oily comb, if you get a refined queen, that'll give you... It will produce oily combs, and then it'll specialize in petroleum, which is pretty neat. So the oil comb, then all you got to do to use it is centrifuge it. You send it in a centrifuge, it'll give you an oily propolis and a honey drop. And then you could take the propolis and stick it in a fluid extractor, and you get your oil. It's not a heck of a lot. I mean, if you look at that, that's 500. So we would have to go nuts with the bees, but I think we could do it. I think it'd be kind of fun. So I'm looking into options for that on how to either bring them here or see if we could finally get into ender chests of some sort, which I believe are gated behind Thaumcraft. So that's why I was saying our next episode is going to be Thaumcraft, because there's a few things we're kind of gating ourselves behind, avoiding it so far, and it's time to take the dive. And as you can tell, I started looking into it in that stream, and it was just, God, it is frustrating. It really is. So I am definitely gonna make a nice solid walkthrough of this for you guys, because it's just overwhelming. It's a lot, and I totally understand it. Like it's crazy. But that's all that you guys have really missed, honestly. There's not much else. I've just been mining, setting up miners constantly, keeping stuff in stock. Oh, I guess I did do the copper. I don't think I got to show you guys my copper setup. So I was struggling with copper, because copper, you do use a buttload of copper. So I made a simple little oreberry farm. I moved the ones from the base. Well, I didn't move them yet, but I just kind of forgot about them and left them there. But I set up something up top for us. So this is our sticker eating trees that we've built a while ago. I showed you guys that already, I believe. If not, let me know and I will show you it in detail if needed. But up here is just a semi-fluid generator. And it's, you're not going to be able to see this, unfortunately, because you have to set this stuff up in the dark. And yeah, that's where it gets tricky for oreberries, because you can't even film in the dark. It gets really tricky. But if you set up an 11 by 11 and build a crop manager, well, not a crop manager, it's the IC2 one that you need. So it's the crop harvester. This is what I had to end up making, which is not cheap at all. It's all your LV parts, an MV circuit, an MV machine hole, an LV conveyor, and then 2 aluminum sensei blades. And these are just 2 plates and an ingot with a hammer and a file, and that gives you a sensei blade. So I just made that, and there's also another one that comes with this. It's a crop waterer or something weird. Cropmatron. That's the one that I originally thought you needed, but this literally just waters and fertilizes. It doesn't actually harvest. So you don't really need it, because this is also really expensive to make. It's an iron chest, 2 regular tanks, some steel and LV machine casings, some LV circuits, and a motor. So, I mean, it's not really that expensive, but yeah, it's actually kind of pointless. You just need the harvester. I'm not sure if it's actually boosting my production at all, because I have water piping into it up top. That's what that water tank was up top. Thankfully, water siting is more than enough for farms. It's still more than enough. So I just have it pumping into there, and that's watering everything. It does use the water, so it acts like it's doing something. I just don't know if it actually benefits the crops or not. But since I ended up I started out without the copper blocks under here, and it was doing pretty good still, honestly. It was a lot more than I expected it to be. And this thing also, you can't do 3 layers like I'm planning on doing with this whenever we finally fill it out, because the Cropmatron can do 3 layers. Well, the crop manager, it could do 3 layers. This crop harvester can only do 2 for some weird reason. It took a lot of trial and error to get this working, but I got it working. It's on the same layer as the second layer, so it's flush with the dirt, but it works. So, actually, it's not flush with the dirt, because I have that going into a hopper, into a chest. Well, into a chest directly. I think. Not sure. No, it is just a conveyor, yeah. I don't remember. But it's just pulling them out and sending them down. Like, as you can see, that was one operation right there. That's quite a bit of berries. And it's not the best ratio still. It really isn't. But letting it run, like, just periodically this whole time, I have not mined copper, okay? Bear in mind, I set this up a while ago, actually, and I've AFK'd a couple times, just not really intentionally, just on accident. And that thing will fill up and stop and overflow. I've had that happen numerous times already, because I'm bad about checking it until I get it piped over here. But this literally is purely from that. And I used a ton earlier. I was over 250 earlier. I just made a ton of copper stuff earlier. So I'm down a little bit now, but it's pretty impressive, honestly. So maybe a couple more, and that might actually hold you over for a while on copper, because copper seems to be the biggest thing that'll hold you back in this pack, because you just need insane amounts of it. But that's basically all it is. It comes down and goes into a steam grinder, and that gets pushed into a packager. So this was a new machine I made, but it's actually really easy to make the schematics. You just shapeless craft these in different patterns to get the schematic of the one you want, because there's actually a few different versions of these. But in order to get a schematic, you just do 4 steel plates and 4 circuits in your assembler. Or you could do 3 aluminum and 2 MVs if that's a little cheaper for you. And here soon, in the next episode, not the next episode, but probably the one after, we'll be making stainless and working on that finally. So that'll be cool. But you just make that and then shapeless craft it into a schematic, stick it into here, and it automatically will convert any dust into a full dust. And that goes straight into a furnace, gets plopped right into a barrel. And that's basically free endless copper, which is pretty neat. And I'm going to do the same thing for the glow flowers, I believe. I don't know which is better, glow flowers or torch berries. But if you centrifuge the glow flowers, you get glowstone dust, and you get what else do you get out of it? Redstone. Well, no, you just get glowstone if you extract them. Yeah, that's what you have to do. You have to put them in an extractor, and you get glowstone. And then if you centrifuge glowstone, you get redstone and gold out of it. So that's actually a good way to get gold, because gold just is really hard to get. Like, there's not a lot in those veins. So it wouldn't hurt to actually do that. And that's one of the next farms I need to set up, because gold I've been struggling to get. I went and set a bunch of miners for it the other day, and I only got 32 stacks. So that was not much. It's definitely something we need to actually produce, because that's just a joke. But otherwise, that's everything you guys really missed. I apologize for dragging on this one. I've had a lot I've wanted to show you guys, and like I said before, it's been a really rough month for me. So I got it all sorted out now, though, and we are back on track, and we are gonna get this freaking company rolling. I think we're gonna stick with the name Quack Lab Incorporated, and we're gonna decorate the building a bit more, and we're gonna have some fun with this, because it's time to get Greg and more, because I missed this and it's been far too long. So let's see what all we can accomplish, and I will see you in the next episode when we will start some Thumbcraft. Catch you next time. Bye.